Welcome to our tutorial today. This is going to be a very brief and very simple and quick editing tutorial on how I would retouch this fashion portrait that we took at last weekend's workshop. Now with this image itself, there's actually not a whole lot we need to do. You can see here by the histogram that the exposure was quite well balanced and there's really good light and no shadows on the face of our model itself. So there's really not a whole lot I'm actually going to do with this processing. Now I'm going to show you just some quick fixes that I would do here in the Adobe RAW feature of Photoshop, and then we will open the image into the full Photoshop CS5. Now the first thing I'm going to do is just here you can see that the image itself was shot in camera with the white balance on auto. Now with this particular image, the light that's coming here on the front of the model was actually natural light. I didn't use any fill flash, but I do have some flash that was used in the background here with the blue lens, just to bring out some of the detail in the headpiece. So all I'm simply going to do first up here is just change that white balance down to daylight, as it was shot with natural light at the front. And that just pinks up her skin a little more naturally. Now as you can see here, if we just zoom in a little, the lighting was really great on the day itself. It was a slightly shaded area where we were, so there's no shadows on her face, there's no areas there that we need to tidy up with the recovery or the fill light features over here. So all I'm simply going to do for the moment in this area is just bring up the clarity of the image. Now I'm not going to take it very far. I do find that if you overdo the clarity of the image in this area, it can actually look very pixelated and unnatural. So I'm actually just going to slide that out to about a 5. There we go. Now that's probably all I'm actually going to do in this area here of Adobe RAW, but I will just go over here to the details feature, and this is where I'm just going to sharpen our image a little more. I find it best to just use the clarity as we did with that clarity slider and just keep the adjustment simple and then readjust it over here in the details section. Now with this particular sharpening, I'm actually going to use a low-high portrait sharpening, which simply means that the amount of sharpening and the detail are going to be lower than the radius and the masking. I do find that this is always best to use, and again it's just a personal taste with how far you go with the sharpening. If you take the sharpening too far, you will actually get a halo effect in a lot of the detail, which really looks unnatural. So first of all, we're just going to zoom right in here on her eyes. As you can see, we've got some lovely catch lights. And I find it best to always zoom in on the eye itself when actually doing the sharpening. So that way then I can keep a look at the actual colour of the eye, the white of the eye, the pupil, and I can have a check also on her eyelashes and things like that and the smaller details, just to make sure we're not getting that halo occurring. So this is just a personal preference. You just simply start by sliding the amount slider across, and then obviously bringing out the radius. Now the radius is what's going to prevent and stop that haloing from occurring. So I don't like to max any of the sliders out. I like to keep them just a little bit under where possible. So you're really just sliding those details along, just really until you're feeling like it's all starting to crisp up. You can see here now that hair on this side of her face is starting to come forward, just bringing out some of those details in the eye. And again with the masking, that's starting to look nice and a lot crisper. So again, the amount and the detail slider for a portrait sharpening should be less than the radius and the masking. Now the other thing I'm going to do here, because it was shot with natural light, we do get that ambient light can cause a slight fuzziness to the clarity of the shot. So I'm just going to take out some of the noise reduction. And again, I don't like to go too far. Taken too far, it actually looks over-processed and can look a little unnatural. I usually keep these quite balanced, and as you can see here as I'm sliding that along, her skin is really automatically smoothing out. So that's again just going to adjust any noise that came from the ambient light by using the natural light, and that's looking really nice. Now as you can see, we're really fortunate on the day. Our model was just gorgeous. She's got wonderful cheek structure, beautiful angle features, and she's got great skin. So there's really not a whole lot we're going to have to do with this image today. So we'll just go ahead now and open that up into the full version of CS5. Now I do use a range of pre-bought, purchased actions. I do find that MPC actions are wonderful. They have free actions as well as some really affordable kits that you can download, but I'm actually not going to use any of those today. I'm pretty happy with how this image came straight out of the camera, so I'm just going to make a couple of really tiny adjustments to it. Now I'm going to be working just purely today on the background layer. It's going to be the most basic of edits because it just really doesn't need a whole lot done to it. I personally just don't think that this particular image needs a whole lot as far as different actions or overlays added, so we're just going to keep it real simple using the background layer. Now what I'm going to do is just first of all, just using Control+, I'm just going to zoom in just so I can have another look at her face. Now I noticed that with her wonderful skin, the only blemish that she does have is just here on her forehead, and we're simply going to remove that by going across to the side toolbar, and as you can see here, collecting the Spot Healing Brush tool. Now I'm just going to make sure the selector is big enough to go over the blemish itself, and just clicking on that, and that's simple enough. If you need to adjust the brush, if it was not big enough to go over the blemish, you just simply go up to the top toolbar here and change the size, as you can see here, of the selector for what you need. But that was fine for today. Now she doesn't have any other blemishes, she's got just stunning skin. I'm not a big fan of overcorrecting any kind of features that models have, so as you can see here, she does have a dimple on her chin. I'm actually going to leave that right alone. I'm not going to make any changes to that at all. Now the only other thing I'm going to do while we're here is I should have gotten our model to reapply her lipstick throughout the shoot. So I'm actually just going to enhance those lips a little bit. And we simply do that by coming up the top to Image and going to Adjustments. Now from that drop down, we simply choose Replace Color. And we take the eye droplet. Now this is a very small image to select from, so it does take a bit of a practice, but I find that, as you can see here, if we click on the outside, we get the black. So we just go in here to where her lips are, and we can see by the color that comes up here that we've selected the right color. Now I'm just going to adjust these lip color by using the hue and the saturation and the lightness sliders. So we simply slide the hue slider to start with, and as you can see, that will just change. If you're looking here, this will actually just change the hue and the color of those lips. Now obviously I really want to keep it quite close to the original color that it was at the start of the day, so I'm actually just going to work in here with some of these really lovely bright pinks. So I think something in there will be quite nice, a pinky purple. Now I like that because it does actually kind of match in with our flowers that she's got. But what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to boost the saturation and just see if I can't make them a bit more intense. With the lightness slider, I'm actually going to make them a little darker, just so it looks a little more natural. Perfect, and once you're happy, just simply click OK. Now we'll just zoom back out again just to have a look at the overall image. Now again, as I said, there's not a whole lot I would do to this. The only thing I do see that I'd like to change on this background layer is there is a small area here of detail and a small area here, probably a rock or something in the background that the natural light has caught on. And I'm just going to remove those using the clone stamp. So from our side toolbar, clone stamp tool. On a PC, just hitting Alt and clicking in the area that I wish to clone and just dropping that over the top. Now again, if the area, the selector here that you've got is not big enough, you simply just go up and get a larger selector. I'm just going to stick to where we were because I don't want to do too big an area. So again, Alt and click and just drop that over that detail there. And that is pretty much all I'm actually going to do to this image for now. Now actually, I've changed my mind. I have actually now, I've zoomed out, just seen one other area that I would like to adjust, and I'm simply just going to zoom in, and again I'm actually going to do that with our clone stamp. Now what I'm looking at here is I can actually see our wonderful lighting assistant. I can actually just see a little bit of his skin behind her dress there. So just using that clone stamp, and I'm going to make sure I don't have the selector too big because I'm going to be working quite close to her dress, so that's a little big. I'll actually just take that down a little smaller. Now what I want to do is just pick up this dark area by clicking Alt. And just really slowly coming in there and just taking out. You may find that you might need to zoom in a little more. And moving down. And just make sure that there is no areas there that you can see. Now I don't want to go too close because I don't want to get any spill onto her dress. Again, we could take our little selector even smaller, maybe even smaller, and just work right into that corner. That's pretty good. Alright, so that's pretty much all that I would do to this image. I would just simply add a small watermark to that and save that as a low-res copy to send off to our wonderful model.